Despite One Piece being popularly regarded as one of the greatest anime and manga of all time, this doesn't mean that it's without flaws. Because of the scale of the story with its thousands of chapters and hundreds of relevant characters, it's an impossible task to expect Oda to coordinate all of these moving parts in a way that satisfies everyone. So despite how great the story of One Piece is, there is still areas which could be improved upon. Now, I don't think any of us can claim to be a better writer than Oda, but thankfully we all have the benefit of hindsight, which is why for this video I want to talk about the Yonko and how I would have changed and hopefully improved upon each of the members of the Yonko, because I genuinely think that the 4 Emperors of the Sea are the most interesting group within the entire story. The Yonko represent the 4 strongest pirate crews that are currently sailing the New World seas. The Yonko are considered to be among the 3 main powers within the world of One Piece. The translation of Yonko means 4 emperors, but throughout the course of the series, we have seen 7 pirates granted this prestigious title, which can be earned when one of the previous Yonko are overthrown. These 7 pirates include Captain of the Straw Hat Pirates Monkey D. Luffy, Captain of the Blackbeard Pirates Marshall D. Teach, Captain of the Red Head Pirates Figurlin Shanks, Captain of the Whitebeard Pirates Edward Newgate, Captain of the Beast Pirates Kaido, Captain of the Big Mom Pirates Charlotte Linlin, and lastly, the leader of Cross Guild, Buggy the Clown. The last entry has a bit of a caveat because the real powerhouses of Cross Guild are Dracule Mihawk and Sir Crocodile. Now these 7 pirates can be viewed as the outright strongest pirates in the entire world, with each and every one of them having enough strength to stand against the entirety of the Marines on their own. But that does not mean that they are all perfect. In fact, some of them can be considered among the most polarizing characters in One Piece, with fans loving and hating them in equal measure. This is understandable given the incredible reputation that the Yonko hold within the One Piece world, as well as the literal years worth of build-up that they have all received. Let's begin by talking about a character who stands out as uniquely villainous amongst the pirates in One Piece. Marshall D. Teach, better known as Blackbeard, is the only pirate who has been confirmed to have killed another Yonko, thus making him a very formidable and dark presence within the story. Given his evil actions and his ambitious nature, Blackbeard is widely regarded as the final villain that Luffy will have to face off against in order to achieve his goal. It's difficult to talk about how I would improve Blackbeard as a character, since the majority of his relevance to the story is yet to be revealed. Blackbeard is a character shrouded in so much mystery he is second to only Imu-sama, so it's understandable that fans want all of the reveals and payoffs related to Blackbeard to be satisfactory and compelling at the very least. We have multiple burning questions about Blackbeard that need proper answers, like how is Blackbeard able to wield multiple devil fruits? Why does Blackbeard never sleep? What is unique about Blackbeard's body as hinted by Saint Saturn? And additionally, what was his connection with Rocksteady Zebek, which had led him to name his flagship after him? The story has yet to reveal the answers to any of these questions. Since we can't improve upon the future of Blackbeard's story since it hasn't happened yet, let's instead try to alter some details about his past. Throughout the story, Blackbeard has been exceptionally lucky. His level of plot armor is only surpassed by Luffy's. The fact that Blackbeard had defeated Ace was justified, but on the other hand, Blackbeard and his crew surviving Magellan's poison hydra attack with an impel down does make me think that he is very lucky, because they were helped by the kindness of Shiryu, who knew the exact location of the antidote to the poison, and Shiryu was only released thanks to Luffy's invasion of Impel Down. So yeah, Blackbeard and his crew got very lucky here, and this is only one of several examples where Blackbeard has been very fortunate to have survived an encounter and even come out on top. Turn your attention towards when he had survived Whitebeard's attack at Marineford, and then the follow-up assault by Sengoku. Then there's the fact that Blackbeard's crew wasn't wiped out by either the Marines or other Yonkos before his power was cemented during the time skip. There are several instances in the story where the only real reason that Blackbeard had come out unscathed from a situation was due to his incredible amount of good fortune. Opportunism is a central theme of Blackbeard's character, as well as making the most of even minor chances that he is given. So it would be a nice change of pace to see Blackbeard come out on top due to his own strength or intelligence rather than just extreme amounts of luck. This even happened recently with his ambush of the Heart Pirates, with everything being very well planned out and realistic for him to come out on top. Even Blackbeard recruiting Aokiji was a brilliant example of Blackbeard turning what was a disastrous situation, which could have have resulted in his crew being wiped out into a massive success which catapulted the power of his crew to a new level. I believe that this is something that has been improving since the time skip, and the capabilities of Blackbeard have been demonstrated to be far more competent than ever before in the story, which is definitely a positive, because if Blackbeard has any hope of being the final antagonist of One Piece, then he needs to cement himself as a terrifyingly powerful foe who is capable of fighting evenly against the likes of Luffy. I think that this is definitely the very minimum that we can expect from a villain like Blackbeard, who's had over 20 real-time years of development within the plot. Now, the next Yonko that I want to speak about is the strongest creature in the world and king of the beasts, Kaido. His conclusion in the Wano arc of One Piece stirred up quite a bit of controversy amongst fans, but I find myself amongst the very few who fully support Oda's decision regarding Kaido's backstory as well as his character arc. There were primarily two aspects of Kaido's character within Wano that left me somewhat dissatisfied. The first was the surprisingly low number of fatalities that were credited to him, and secondly, the way that his defeat was ultimately handled. Since his introduction in the Punk Hazard arc, Kaido has been depicted as a colossal and almost mythical figure. He was portrayed as nearly indestructible, overwhelmingly powerful, and seemingly unbeatable, and he had earned one of the most formidable reputations within all of One Piece. This was most evident during the flashback with Kozuki Oden, where Kaido's formidable strength was on full display. He had faced off against the mightiest samurai and then demonstrated his sheer ruthlessness via the cruel way that he had carried out Oden's execution. If you remember back to the Alabasta arc, Luffy had said that it's naive not to expect anyone to die when you want to liberate a country through war. Now, despite this, from my quick recollection, Kaido doesn't actually succeed in killing anyone throughout the entire raid on Onigashima. Despite defeating Luffy several times, these battles had never resulted in a permanent death. In his fight with the Scabbards, he manages only to sever Kiku's arm, and nothing more significant than that. Another striking moment is when he has Kinemon at his mercy. He appears to be near death and is then impaled by Kaido's own hand. Yet despite this, Kinemon survives. Oda appears to have a reluctance or an outright aversion to killing off relevant characters outside of backstories, with only a handful of exceptions to this rule. This narrative choice becomes particularly noticeable in an arc which is filled with the high stakes of war against a very formidable opponent like Kaido. The absence of real consequences in these battles stands out as a glaring omission, something that I find particularly hard to overlook, especially in the scene where Kinemon is attacked. Now, moving on to Kaido's defeat, I think that this was more of an issue of expectation than anything else. Oda has openly discussed his challenge in creating a satisfactory conclusion to the character arc of Kaido. He had doubts about having the strongest creature in the world being taken out by a punch that is just slightly harder than normal, but in the end, Kaido did end up being defeated exactly like this, by a punch that was significantly more powerful than usual, albeit it was delivered by Luffy in his colossal Gear 5th form. While this finale was undoubtedly epic and will likely grow on fans over time, it initially did feel somewhat anticlimactic. Given that I myself cannot think of a more satisfying way that Kaido could have been defeated, I think that it's safe to say that we'll settle for the way that Oda had done things within the manga. Now, moving on to somebody who I imagine is most people's favorite Yonko, and probably even favorite character, we have the former strongest man in the world, Whitebeard. Whitebeard, in my opinion, is one of the greatest characters in all of manga. The end to his story at Marineford is as heartbreaking as it was epic. Additionally, his character design is one of the most recognizable in the entire series, with his devil fruit and the manner in which he had utilized it being one of the most incredible that we have ever seen. Whitebeard's impact on the series is matched only by the likes of Joy Boy and Goldie Roger. We were fortunate enough to see some of Whitebeard's earlier life through the flashbacks of both Kozuki Oden in the Wano arc and the God Valley flashback during Egghead Island. This is all to say that Whitebeard is probably one of the most perfect characters in the entire story. So in my opinion, there isn't really much that we can do to really improve upon his character, which is why I want to ask all of you, how do you think Whitebeard's character could have been improved upon? Whether if this is his role within the story, the actions that he takes, or even the design of his character. I look forward to hearing your thoughts about one of the titans of the sea. From the world's strongest man to arguably the strongest woman, let's talk about Big Mom next. The biggest issue that I have with Big Mom's character is that she never quite lived up to her fearsome reputation, which was established during the Whole Cake Island arc, where she was first formally introduced. Within that arc, Big Mom was a truly terrifying figure. Her Conqueror's haki alone exerted such an immense pressure that it nearly overwhelmed everyone at the party. The Straw Hats, including Luffy, Capone Beiji, and even her own children like Katakuri, all being pushed back from the overwhelming might of this Yonko's will. When Big Mom had reappeared within the Wano arc, it seemed as though she would continue her reign of terror, posing a constant threat to anyone who would come in her way. However, that expectation was unmet because instead Big Mom was oddly relegated to the role of a comedic relief antagonist. She was comically ejected from the waterfall entrance to Wano not once but twice. Following this, she had suffered a bout of amnesia. She was then driven over by Frankie and Brooke, and she didn't really even seem to achieve anything at all during the Wano arc. Now, she definitely did have her moments because her initial clash with Kaido and later the strength that she had demonstrated against Kid and Law were notable, but despite this, she never reclaimed the formidable aura that she had wielded during the Whole Cake Island arc. She simply wasn't as intimidating anymore, which is a significant problem when discussing a Yonko antagonist whose very name should invoke fear across the seas. One Piece has always maintained comedic elements throughout, and it's never something that I would want to see disappear from the story, but I do think that those moments could have been focused on a different character rather than one of the main antagonists like Big Mom, because I think that the comedic moments definitely damaged the image of her character, when Big Mom was supposed to be somebody who was going to pose a significant challenge to the main cast. Now, moving on from the oldest Yonko to one of the youngest, as we arrive at the protagonist of the series, Monkey D. Luffy. Now, discussing any changes to Luffy is potentially one of the most divisive topics within the One Piece community. Recently, I've observed debates over Luffy being too serious or not serious enough, overly simplistic or overly clever, excessively goofy or immature, and being either too strong or too weak. Now, one particular aspect of Luffy's character that has always stood out to me is his apparent lack of interest in the broader world. At first glance, this seems contradictory, because Luffy approaches every new island with a childlike wonder. He is eager to explore and engage with his immediate environment, yet his curiosity rarely extends beyond these immediate surroundings. Often, this is linked back to Luffy's naivety or an intentional disregard, which is born from the confidence that he has in himself. Now, there are moments when Luffy's ignorance appears to go a bit too far. Logically speaking, Luffy should have shown an interest in the Yonko earlier on, given that they are key rivals on his path to becoming the Pirate King, as well as being direct adversaries of his mentor Shanks. Surprisingly, it appears that he needs to be coerced into learning about them. In contrast to how Shanks stays informed about Luffy's adventures, I'd find myself wishing to see Luffy's reactions to global events which are seldom ever shown. The only two examples that I can think of are when he had learnt about Ace's upcoming execution back on Amazon Lily, and then him hearing the news of Vivi's situation following the reverie. I'm sure all of you agree with this idea that we want to know what Luffy thinks about the goings on in the world. How would he react to hearing about Law and Kid's defeats at the hands of Blackbeard and Shanks? What are his thoughts on Sabo being accused of assassinating Vivi's father? And how on earth will he react when he discovers what has happened to Garp? Exploring these facets of Luffy's character is critical, as he is the central figure that draws us all to the series. In the grand scheme of things, this is just a very subtle tweak that I'd consider making to Luffy's character, because overall he is still a very compelling protagonist who we have been following for over 20 years. Moving on to the least defined members of the Yonko, we have Cross Guild. For this breakdown, I want to set aside Buggy because his role hardly impacts the operations of Cross Guild as a Yonko organization, and personally speaking, I think that he's been utilized excellently in the narrative, and I don't think that he requires any improvements. This now leaves us with the main powers behind Cross Guild, who are Mihawk and Crocodile. Mihawk is a character who, in my opinion, has been excellently portrayed throughout the series. Like many fans, I am eager to see how his role evolves in the final arcs of One Piece. I've even got an entire video on the channel where I go over how strong Mihawk is, where I talk about all of the feats and accomplishments that he's achieved in the story thus far. Now, moving on from this we have Crocodile, and if I were to summarize him in one word, it would be inconsistent. His power level during the Alabasta arc seems disconnected from his capabilities which have been shown elsewhere in the series, and this represents what I consider to be one of the major plot holes of One Piece. This inconsistency becomes apparent to many fans as they progress deeper into the series. How could Crocodile, a warlord who has been in power for decades and even clashed with Whitebeard, lose to a then very novice Luffy? The most plausible explanation is that Oda had not fully developed the concept of Haki at this very early stage in the story, but this isn't something that you could really criticize One Piece for, as with any series which has spanned over 20 years, you are likely to see these kinds of contradictions as new information is constantly being revealed to us. But of course, with hindsight, this is something that I would definitely want to change about Crocodile's character. While it's still possible for Luffy to defeat Crocodile by playing off of the natural weaknesses of his devil fruit, it would be difficult to explain why Crocodile's Haki-infused attacks weren't immediately knocking Luffy down, or why Crocodile's observation Haki wasn't easily allowing him to dodge anything that Luffy was throwing at him. In the present timeline of the story, Crocodile is a man who has faced off against Doflamingo, Mihawk, and even Akainu at Marineford, and he now stands alongside the likes of Blackbeard, Shanks, and Luffy in strength as well as status. The relative weakness of Crocodile's character pre-timeskip is a big plot hole, and I would definitely want to change this if I had the ability to. The last Yonko that we'll be talking about is Redhead Shanks, and he stands as not only the mightiest pirate to have sailed the seas, but also one of the strongest individuals within all of One Piece. Since the earliest chapters of the series, Shanks has been a pivotal figure. Despite his rare appearances, his actions as well as his reputation have consistently captured the attention of fans whenever he steps onto the scene. Shanks' journey from a cabin boy on Goldie Roger's ship to one of the revered emperors of the sea illustrates a life marked by steady and significant growth. A common critique amongst fans is that we simply do not get to see enough of Shanks. Despite him playing more of a larger role in the present story, Shanks has yet to take on an active role within the ongoing narrative. He has recently declared that he is finally going to claim the One Piece, as well as defeating the Kid Pirates by using one of the most formidable attacks that we have ever seen. There is hope that Shanks will soon become a central figure within One Piece. Despite all of this, I think that most fans will be asking questions of just what exactly it is that Shanks has spent all of his time waiting for. Increasing Shanks' role in the story throughout could have also backfired by making his appearances less impactful and momentous. With Oda giving Shanks only a limited number of appearances, I think that it's benefited his popularity and his reputation. We've now reached the point of the video where I want to hand over the discussion to all of you. Let me know your thoughts on how you would change each of the Yonko, whether if this is past or present actions of the individual Yonko members. I look forward to reading all of your thoughts. If you've enjoyed this video and you want to see more One Piece content like this, then definitely subscribe to the channel so that you're the first to know when I upload a new video. Lastly, thank you for making it to the end of this one, and I cannot wait to see you in my next One Piece video.
If you enjoy my content, then you can support my channel through Patreon for as little as $1 a month, or even through YouTube by becoming a channel member. You will gain access to exclusive channel perks and a Discord server which I frequently use. So become a member of my Zero Division and be the first to know about my upcoming videos. And once again, thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.